Thanks for joining us here on Forward Thinking. David West, Ricky Volante. We got a special guest today. NBA player, current CBA player, Ekpe Udoh. Number 6 pick, right? Michigan, Baylor background in college. Welcome to Forward Thinking, Ekpe.
Appreciate y'all for having me and accommodate time change.
Absolutely. I want to start with, just for our listeners, get a background of yourself. Where you're from, a little bit about your early basketball career, and then ultimately the steps you took to where you are now.
Yeah, so my whole name is Epidemic Friday Udoh. My parents are Nigerian, both from Nigeria. Dad came over first, and mom followed my older brother. They settled in Edmond, Oklahoma. That's where it all started. Signed a student visa for my dad to go to school. Church did. And he's been going to church ever since. So that's been my stomping ground. From there, grew up, won a state championship, went to college at the University of Michigan first. At first, I didn't think I was going to go to college because I didn't get my ACT score. So I was actually thinking about going the prep school route. So I was actually still playing like spring basketball my senior year.
Okay.
And then I got my ACT score and was able to go to University of Michigan. First year with Tommy Amaker, then he got fired. John Beilein came in. He was a coach. We were terrible. It was just a different change. And I wanted to get back closer to home. And that's why I decided to transfer. We had some choice words and some conversations that I'll never forget. And Baylor took that year off, due to NCAA rules.
Right.
Came out that year on fire. We were able to make a run to the Elite Eight, lost to Duke. Realized my dream, got drafted by the Warriors, 6th pick. And I was with the Warriors, Bucks, Clippers, went overseas a couple years, which I would say changed my life because I was able to just, get outside the American bubble.
Right.
Just had to sit down and deal with myself. Right. So that was cool. Came back, played with the Jazz for 2 years, and now I'm in China.
Good deal. What was that transition like from Michigan to Baylor for you as an athlete?
It wasn't too bad because now he's my best friend. He came with me from Michigan. He's my manager, agent, all of the above now. So he came to Baylor with me, and I knew a couple of the guys that went to Baylor before I got there. So that was cool. Sitting out the year, that was tough. Travel with the guys, that was definitely tough. But the adjustment, I think, was more so probably the university size.
Okay.
Like you said, Michigan is 30,000 plus, and then Baylor is like 10,000. The cities were different. So that was the biggest difference for me.
I know you mentioned it, and you don't have to go as deep, but how was that coach's reaction when you made the decision to go from? And I'm only asking you because of who the coach is, so I just want to know what that was like, making that choice and what those conversations were like.
Yeah, man, to keep it straight, I'm glad what happened to him happened. Yeah, he said some things. He just said something to me, man, that. So I was meeting with him before he granted me my release, and he was like, "You know what? I'm gonna sign this release, and then in a couple of years, I want you to come back, and we'll see what you made of yourself."
Wow!
And I was stuck, like, dang, I'm a college kid, like, how are we gonna go about it? And I just left out the meeting. I told my circle that I was there, and of course they was off of Beeline from the rip. And then, 3 or 4 years later, I pulled right back up. Well, got a meeting to a secretary or assistant, whatever. And as soon as I sat down, he just talked the whole time. I really didn't get any words in. And all I needed was for him to see me.
Right. I got you. Yeah, I think sometimes these parts of, the athletic journey sometimes are overlooked because I never had to transfer, but I did have to have some tough conversations. So what was it in you that allowed you to have that tough conversation, face that conversation with that coach alone and making that decision?
Man, just my circle that I relied on. Wow, Detroit is like my second home. So my first year there, one of my teammates, Deshaun Sin, he was from Detroit, so we would be back and forth, and I was able to make this group of friends, and I would rely on them, talk through the decisions and the year that we just had and going forward. And, it just knew it was my time. And then I knew at the same time I would have a year off, to work on my and get ready to make that splash. Because when I transferred, I didn't want to go to like a mid-level D1. I wanted to still stay at a high level. And, so of course I can play at that level. It's just, what happened just didn't work for me. So, I just went to that meeting 10 toes down, man, and just,
Right.
went into it.
Right.
Got it.
A lot of times when people talk about transfers, they try to portray it as though the athletes are running away from a situation or, unwilling to face adversity. This may be a little bit of a leading question, but do you feel like that's unfair of how athletes get portrayed during that process?
Definitely. I mean, especially when you don't have a conversation with that athlete on why he's, making the change. It's unfortunate, and it is what it is. I mean, I think at that point for the athlete, you just gotta take those lumps, take that year off, and then get ready. And when it's the time, show them that you can play on whatever level.
Yeah. So as I sit here in my Cavs hat, a happier person today than I was at the beginning of the season. In other terms of transitions, you mentioned jumping from, I think it was from the Clippers, and then you went to Turkey, where you did extremely well, got a completely different perspective within basketball. Could you tell us a little bit about that transition as well?
Man, that transition was that was an interesting one. That was definitely interesting because my last year with the Clippers, I was teammates with Hedo Turkoglu.
Bingo, I got you.
and he's from Turkey, and just our conversations, and then trying to figure out who he was when it came to Turkey. Then after the season, whatever what happened, we became good friends. And then the team that I wanted to go play for, Fenerbahce, he knew the president of the club. They had that conversation. I had a workout, and then it all worked out well. And then first game I have in Fenerbahce, Turkoglu's there on the sideline. And it was special, man. It was special to see that come full circle.
Right.
But just to learn the game, from Coach Obradovic, who's one of the greatest coaches in sports, learning from the European style was dope. It was great to build that confidence back in your game. Still play at a high level of basketball. You're just not. Everybody ain't built to just go overseas. People think you can just go overseas and just whatever league you're gonna go dominate, and that's not the case.
Right. How was that experience? Living. I know you're Nigerian by nationality, but you lived most of your life in the U.S. So how was that transitioning to living outside of the U.S.?
It was tough because I was around the time where this whole agenda on Muslims and trying to make them out to be a bad individual. So going there, I had all those stigmas in my mind. So I wasn't open-minded. So the first 6 months I struggled. I didn't straight from the gym to the crib, eat, right back to the crib. But then as I started to open up and I started reading more, this is when I really started to get into history. I just started to open up my perspective, man. And that's when I really started to enjoy my time on and off the court.
Right. So before that point, how important was, I guess, learning? Because, experience is the best teacher. So I don't believe you ever really get to learn things unless you truly experience them. So what was it about that experience that sort of pushed you toward history more, maybe learning a little bit more serious? How was it in college in respect to what you were doing in Turkey?
Well, I have Nigerian parents. My dad, he went to the University of Central Oklahoma when we was like elementary school. We used to be in the college library.
Oh, wow.
Waiting on him to get done or whatever. You just got students looking at us like, what are y'all doing here? We just been here. So my dad always, basketball is cool for my dad, but that education and me getting my degree is what really put a smile on his face.
Right.
So learning was always there. Did I take it as serious as I do now? No, I didn't. I always did enough to get where I needed to go. But then once I finally got comfortable in Istanbul, I started just reading about history from the black perspective. And that's when it really hit me. Then I started to pay attention to the black experience or the African experience all around the world, everywhere I went. And it was different. I was starting to open my eyes to, the inequalities and all the ills that are going on. I just kept getting deeper in it. And as I kept getting deeper, I grew up in a Christian home. Mother's very religious, spiritual. As I started to get closer to history, all of that, the faith, started to leave me.
Right.
So seeing how it was used, in religion, to take over a group of people. So that, even though it was great that I was learning, I was going away from my faith and not even dealing with it, just because of what I had learned.
How did basketball help you? Like, where does basketball fit in that context? Because I've always, I've had that struggle just dealing with keeping basketball in a certain context, but then understanding the reality that we live in. So how does basketball sort of help you in that gray area? I think sometimes that we operate in.
Almost like a sanctuary, somewhere
Right.
I could get away and do what I love and push all that to the side. Once I come off of it, I come down from that high. You go back into that space. But there was always a way, especially when I went overseas, because you going around these different countries and you start to see these experiences. You see how crazy these fans are. But once you get on that court with your five, and you were in Europe, every game is life or death almost.
Right. Right.
So every game you putting it on. So you just going to war, really, every game with your band of brothers and soldiers. And that's what would take me away from it.
Right.
Is the atmosphere and those fans, is that one of the staunchest differences between playing in the U.S. versus playing in Turkey versus playing in China, where it's just a totally different experience?
Europe, man, it's nothing. Those fans are the craziest fans. You could take college, you can take NFL, NBA, MLB. You can put them all together, and you still wouldn't get there.
Nah.
It's almost impossible. And overseas as well, they overlook these things. Like, these fans are really, you could say they're racist. You have racist fans, and I guess they don't really understand the connection between being racist and you having a black player, but then the black player on the other team, they say whatever, but then go rooting for you because you're on their team. You're making their life. The clubs over there, it's like that is their life, and they will literally kill you.
I had a teammate of mine played in the Euro Cup years ago. This is probably like my third or fourth year in the league. And after we didn't make the playoffs, I went over to experience like the Elite Eight. I'll never forget it. I mean, the drums, all the instrumentation, it's just a constant, just like, I guess, a constant cheer that's going on. I didn't even understand. I don't think I would be able to play like the way that I am, like cerebral. I stay inside my thoughts. I just felt like, damn, this might be a step too much. You know what I mean? Like in terms of the environment, where like you got like 10, 15 bass drums in the arena, people just beating them things and whistles and all kind of stuff. We don't have any of that stuff here. So I just always thought it was unique to see and experience that.
As serious as I saw you throughout your career playing against you, the moment something would have hit you in the head like a coin, you might have lost it. That throwing stuff was big, man.
Yeah,
like, I don't remember one of my teammates in Fenerbahce, his name was Gigi Daytona.
Okay. Yeah, I remember Daytona, yeah.
Yeah, so we were playing one of the rival games. We were on the road, and I think it was the third quarter, going back and forth. Next thing you know, he gets hit with an iPhone charger, the end piece.
Ooh.
He's bleeding from the middle of his head. I'm talking, so they paused the game, went to the locker room, and once they paused the game, they just started throwing whatever on the court. Water bottles, they was throwing milk on the court. They was going crazy. Paused the game for like 15 minutes and just got on the fans, and then we came back out. We got the fans still there.
Yeah, it's a whole different experience, playing over there. But like I said, I think for the most part, guys who experience that, obviously, get to evolve in a way that sometimes, guys who don't ever experience playing in those environments do. What was the NBA's role? And again, I've always sort of appreciated you from a distance, because you're willing to, talk about reading and just not shy away from this other part of you that, obviously in the basketball and the sporting world is not represented often, right? Like somebody who can articulate their thoughts, somebody who understands the value of education, somebody who's able to think outside these really sophomoric headlines. So what was that experience coming into the NBA? Because I know what my experience was like, being somebody that was like, I got hooked into history at like 17, 18 years old. And, when I got to college, plunged myself into it a little bit more, coming to the NBA, and it's like, I had some thoughts. So what was that like for you?
It was, at first I was just trying to. You come into so much money, you know.
Right.
I'm just living the life. So I really didn't get. I really wasn't reading at that point. My guy would send me articles and different stuff, and I would get it that way. You know, it's funny. 2011, 12. I think it was the summer. Billy Hunter was fired. We were in Vegas. We were going NBPA meeting, and they had the 3 candidates to be the next president.
Yeah.
I think it was 2 women and one male. In that meeting, they did their spiel, and at the end of every meeting, you were sitting.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is when I was like, "Dang, I wasn't really thinking about this type of stuff." And you would always ask that question.
Yeah.
Well, not you asked that question. You know, what do y'all think about group economics, and how would y'all add that to, for us, for our benefit? And it was crazy because when you said, like, people were snickering on my side of the room because they didn't really understand what you was talking about. Like, if you're on another level, and then to see like the candidates, they couldn't really speak to it.
Right.
And then you explain it, and I was like, dang, he is as serious as he is, man. He's very intellectual,
Right. Yeah, I remember that.
And looking back on it, the whole Billy Hunter, all that stuff was crazy. But as I started to get more into it, and I started a book club while I was in Milwaukee. That was like my 3rd year. And I didn't really start speaking out until after Turkey. Like, Turkey was what changed my life, being able to speak out and have these conversations. When I came back into the NBA, when I was with the Jazz, we started reading different books. Like last year, we read the autobiography of Malcolm X. We read a book, Heavy, by Kiese Laymon. So we were reading all these different type of books and having these conversations. And to me, it was special because I was building these communities, and if these were books that they never thought to read, and I was introducing that to them, so it was special.
And those are fans. Now, these fans that are part of your book club are from all over the world. Like, yeah.
Like I've carried it. Even when I went overseas, I had it. So this is something fun. It was just a way to interact with fans. But as it continued to build, it just became, these little communities that I would take wherever I went. And then last year, Miss Obama shouted us out, and that was really a joy for them, for the fans, and for myself.
Right, good deal.